I'm your host, Patrick Murphy, and this is On Track. Hi, and welcome to On Track. I'm your host, Patrick Murphy. With us today are Mike and Max of the Majungas. So, welcome back.
Thanks for having us. We're always looking for an excuse to dress up, you know.
So, can you introduce yourselves a little bit and tell us about your musical background?
Sure. My name is Mike Gentile. I started Majungas 2006, 2007 or so. You know, a lot of lineup changes as of late, but kind of taken the band and went to the studio with it, and opening up, collaborating with a lot of musicians, Max being the first one, and excited to be working on this project today for you, the Ancient Astronaut Theory.
Okay. So, what have you been up to since the last time you guys were here?
Working on this album. It's been one of the more stressful projects that I've been on, but you know, now that it's done, rewarding projects because it's really coming out great. Mm-hmm. You know, I think the last time I was here, we started working on it in a few different band variations after that as well, and it just kept going up and down, and then finally I just took the project home. And you know, kind of went stagnant for a little bit, and then coincidentally, I bumped into Max at a Paul McCartney concert, and we were talking about the project, and he was just like, "Hey, if you need help, I'm ready to help." So I took him up on that offer.
Mm-hmm. So, as musicians, was there a certain point in your life when you knew that music was something that you wanted to do?
Well, for me, it kind of came late in life. I noodled around with the guitar, a chord book in you know, my early teens, but I didn't really take it seriously until my 20s. And funnily enough, Max also owns a guitar store, Stone Grove Guitar, and I actually
in LaGrange, Illinois.
Right, and I took my my guitar lessons there. But the formal training that I do have was done in his guitar store. So kind of another little interesting piece of history there as well. But you know, I mean, music. Growing up listening to it, it's always been a part of my life, but it was definitely a late addition. You know, I was more into like performance and theater and acting and stuff early on. Music kind of came later.
How about you?
Music has always kind of been a controlling factor of my life, but when I was 14, George Harrison inspired me with his live version of Here Comes the Sun. And then I just started playing for like 4 hours a day.
So when did you both pick up guitar?
Back when I was 14.
Okay.
Yeah, I was probably 17, 18, but you know, didn't take it seriously till probably 22.
So do you usually do acoustic versions of your songs, or is it more so electronics?
Only here. Or at least, the music that we've done with Majungas is always an electrical beginning. You know, we do an album and record it, you know, in the studio, electric set and everything. But you know, it's always nice to come here. It really reminds me of the early 90s, you know, when they used to get all those grunge bands on MTV to do some unplugged versions of their songs, and I like that experience here. So it's nice because as a songwriter too, you know, I usually create a song acoustically the majority of the time. Sometimes it'll come up in a different way, but the majority of the times it comes up that way, so I could kind of do like a stripped down version, and it comes out a little bit different, but it's fun to work on.
Yeah. So can you give us a brief overview of the first song we're going to hear called Panspermia?
Yeah. So the album itself is called The Ancient Astronaut Theory. It's a concept piece based on the teachings of the Ancient Astronaut Theory. So many different extremes with the Ancient Astronaut Theories, and I've always been drawn and interested towards the birth of our universe and the beginning of Earth and how human beings got here. So that's kind of where I focus the story on.
Okay.
And panspermia answers one of those questions. How did Earth become a planet full of life? Things like trees and plants and insects, things that don't necessarily need to be raised, that
Right.
could just kind of thrive off of the elements. So panspermia is an actual theory that for the 4-something billion years that Earth was just spinning around, it just got bombarded with asteroids, meteorites from different galaxies, and it contained bacteria
Okay.
that over time, crashing into the ocean
Yeah.
and the Earth's crust, it just turned into something.
Right. Okay. Let's have a listen.
2, 3, 4.
Let's go. Many light years away, in the darkest depths of space, cosmic rocks hit the sky. They're seemingly in a race. Shimmering through the galaxy, traveling at incredible speeds, descending upon Earth, intending to spread their seeds. The ingredients of life are packed inside the rocky spheres. Interstellar microbes sprinkled through the atmosphere. Meteoroids and asteroids, comets and small planetoids. Panspermia, panspermia. We'll fast forward time by a few billion years. The organisms evolve and active life appears. Well, first came vegetation, then insects and animals. At the bottom of the ocean and in the heart of the jungles. Bacteria, where did you come from? The answer is never clear. Extraterrestrial influence, the aliens send you here. Meteoroids and asteroids, comets and small planetoids. Panspermia, the building blocks of life.
Mom, can we get some ice cream?
Please, Mom, please.
No, we're having dinner soon.
Please.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
Four years ago, I went through something that was very difficult for me. I was faced with a very big challenge at a young age. Once I reached out to my sister, it got a little better. Once I told my mother, it got a little better. The more I talked about it, I felt it coming off. If you're strong enough to just open your mouth, that's all it takes.
Welcome back to On Track. I'm your host, Patrick Murphy. With us today are Mike and Max of the Majungas. So can you give us an overview of your music writing process?
Yeah, Usually something has to intrigue me, just walking about life and something strikes me as unusual or funny or odd or interesting. Sometimes it's more deep and personal, but not often. Most of my music at least comes out to be comical and a little bizarre, at least some of the early stuff as well.
Was that kind of an accident, or did you try to push for that?
No, and I think a lot of it too, I mentioned that I picked up guitar late and I tried some other creative things in life before, and stand-up comedy was something I had always thought about and wrote some material, never performed it, and screenwriting as well. So I think story and humor just always kind of seemed to be in harmony with each other, and I think when I started to learn how to make music, and I was encouraged by my guitar instructor, hey, why don't you throw some lyrics on those? And then the light bulb hit. I said, oh wow, I could do that. So I took whatever elements I had from my past and used that to songwrite. So that's usually where I'll get my inspiration from. Something happens and I'm fired up and I got to write it.
Yeah. So what's some of the biggest challenges you guys face as musicians?
Some of the biggest challenges, recording's always tough. When you start to think about, you do one take and then you hear something in it and then you keep going on. Sometimes it's hard to move past some of your better takes, and it could become a very monotonous process, a draining process. Just the time really that goes into it. And the patience that you have to have, that's big for me, because I'm very, I want to finish something, and when I keep working on it, and it just sucks up all your time, and you don't want to rush it, but it's one of those things. It's a process you got to do.
Yeah, layering of the arrangement can be tricky though. Deciding when to stop.
Yeah. So, what are some of your favorite things about performing in general?
For me, it's always been the theatrical element for Majungas. We've always been known to have audio-visual an element to our shows. We'd have a big screen projector and things running kind of in between songs to kind of introduce a song or a character that we're doing. We're known to put on costumes and have guests come on stage and put on costumes for us as well. So that's always been my big thing. I always try to make a performance out of it more than just like a rock show.
Yeah. So can you talk about the origin of man? One of the next songs we're going to hear from you.
Yeah, it obviously looks at the origin of man, the beginning of mankind, and it kind of steps outside of the box of the concept story in itself, and it takes place in today's time, and from a person of today's society, kind of looking back at certain things that happen and just questioning things, kind of some probing questions about that, which ultimately leads to what possibly could have happened for the beginning of mankind.
All right, let's have a listen to the next few of your songs.
1, 2, 3, 4. As I sit here and ponder the origin of man, I kick around a few ideas about how life began. Suppose that DNA did not occur by a happenstance, and we were designed by an otherworldly intelligence. Some forms of life need not be cared for, thriving independently at birth. But a newborn human must be nurtured With gene mutation off the board, I search for answers beyond the stars. To an advanced civilization that inhabits a planet similar to ours. If modern man can accomplish things like in vitro and genome alteration, who's to say that the aliens didn't play a part in our conception? Spacecraft abductees claim to witness people in suspended animation. Well, could this be proof we're artificial? Have we found the source of our creation? The origin of man? Yeah, the origin of man. One, two, three, four. Before the roar of the dinosaurs, there were aliens living on Mars. Humanoids known as the Greys, the smartest beings of the Milky Way. They gathered human embryonic cells, preserved inside test tube vials. Organs formed, a heartbeat began, developed into a fully grown man. Well, first came Adam and next came Eve. Their only mission was to conceive, multiplying under the stars. Humankind was created on Mars, but there are spies beyond our galaxy, stuck in the stages of humanity. Curiosity could start a war, endangering all life on Mars. Ooh, whoa. People come from In comes the mothership from a distant world. Warning sirens blare from our stronghold. One by one they teleport through the sky. Foreign creatures I could not identify. Welcome to our home, the land of Martians. Do you come in peace? What are your intentions? 2, 3, 4. Boom! Hot from their guns, a laser stream ransacked the village, harboring the human beings. The outnumbered Greys could hardly put up a fight, watching their creations disappear from sight. The invaders prepared their vessels for departure, with the human race in their capture. A nuclear bomb was detonated. A crimson capsule was obliterated.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes twice a day. They have the time.
I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does.
And like that, you're a job creator.
Welcome back to On Track. I'm your host, Patrick Murphy. With us today are Mike and Max of the Majungas. So, you guys have a style for some of the songs we've been hearing. Are you guys big science fiction fans, or is this kind of have to do with the album, or?
You know, actually, Max is probably the more sci-fi guy, I think, at least from a movie standpoint. But I always joke. I say, no, I'm into the real alien stuff. Like, you know, like I'm more like I said, kind of where the album is, the beginnings of our universe and Earth and humankind. That's kind of my thing. I'm more like in the deep end of it and the possibilities of what if, the hypothetical questions, and you know, that's kind of where what I was able to bring to the album. Max, with his more sci-fi background, I think really made it not only just a rock album, which I had, but more like a true sci-fi rock album. So, yeah.
Yeah, we got some cool keyboard synthesizer stuff going and other stuff, oscillating.
Yeah.
Spaceship noises.
So if we want to hear more of your music or some other versions of it, where can we find you online?
It's easy if you go to majungastheband.com. You could stream any of the songs for free there. We're also on Spotify and iTunes.
Okay. So as a group, where do you guys hope to see yourself in the future?
Well, because this album took so long to work on, I've actually had some time to kind of piece together elements of another album which it might be a bit ambitious, but I'd like to do it this year if possible as well. So hopefully there's 2 albums from Majungas this year, but it's always been about making music and,
Yeah.
and getting songs out there. So until I run out of stuff to write about, that process will never stop.
All right. So can you talk about the last song we're going to hear from you called Trappist 1, Can You Hear Me?
Yeah, so it was actually kind of a late add-on. I think I had done the album and I was ready to move forward with it, and everything was pretty deep into production. And then NASA released the TRAPPIST-1 discovery, and I was just so intrigued by it. And it was just more of a nod, I guess, to all the scientists over at NASA and the job that they're doing, finding all these distant galaxies and stars, and it kind of tied into it. I was almost going to save it for another album, but I'm like, no, this is an Alien album. It has to go on, even if it's a bonus track or something like that. It doesn't need to fit the theme of the concept. But yeah, that's where it came from.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being here. Let's have a listen to your last song.
All right.
Our galaxy, tell me what you see. Proxima Centauri, can anybody hear me? A message from the Milky Way, sent by radio waves. Does anybody wanna play? Maybe some other day. TRAPPIST-1 coming clear, Spitzer sees her 7 spheres. Will signs of life appear? Hey James Webb, what's in the atmosphere? What's in the atmosphere? Propulsion technology, more than just a fantasy. Is it a possibility to crack the wormhole theory? The data has just begun. Exoplanets and their suns fund the exploration. The search for life is on. Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me? TRAPPIST, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me? TRAPPIST, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me? TRAPPIST, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1? Can you hear me, TRAPPIST-1?
Thanks for watching On Track. I'm your host, Patrick Murphy, and a special thanks to the Majungas. We'll see you next time.